Episode 9. David's life slowly began to take on a new rhythm in the weeks that followed. The mornings were busy but filled with purpose, getting the kids ready for school, packing lunches, and walking them to the bus stop. The afternoons were spent working at his new job, one that offered better pay and more flexibility, allowing him to balance his professional responsibilities with his role as a single father. The job itself was a blessing. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills and gave David a sense of pride. He was no longer living paycheck to paycheck or relying on borrowed money to make ends meet. For the first time in years, he felt like he had solid ground beneath his feet. The evenings were his favorite part of the day. Dinner with the kids, helping Emma with her homework, listening to Ben's stories about his day at school, and tucking Sophie into bed. All of it reminded him of why he was fighting so hard to rebuild their lives. His children were his anchor, and their laughter and love gave him the strength to keep moving forward. One crisp Saturday morning, David decided it was time to tackle a project he'd been putting off for weeks: organizing the house. The mess left behind from Sarah's departure still lingered, a physical reminder of the upheaval their family had endured. He started with the living room, boxing up items Sarah had left behind and reorganizing the space to make it feel like a fresh start. As he worked, Emma wandered in and plopped down on the couch, watching him quietly for a moment. "Daddy, are we going to be okay?" she asked softly. David paused, setting down the box he was holding. He knelt in front of her, taking her hands in his. "Yes, sweetheart," he said firmly. "We're going to be more than okay. We're going to be happy. I promise." Emma smiled, her worry easing, and David felt a renewed determination to make good on that promise. A few days later, as David was preparing dinner, there was a knock at the door. He wasn't expecting anyone, so his brow furrowed as he wiped his hands on a towel and went to answer it. When he opened the door, he was met with a sight that stopped him in his tracks. Sarah stood there, her posture uncharacteristically meek, her eyes filled with a mixture of regret and hope. She was holding a small bag, as if she wasn't sure whether she'd be invited in. "David," she began, her voice quiet. "Can we talk?" He stood there for a moment, his expression unreadable. The sight of her stirred a complicated mix of emotions: anger, sadness, and a faint echo of the love they had once shared. But he quickly pushed those feelings aside. "What do you want, Sarah?" he asked, his tone neutral but firm. She hesitated, her hands clutching the strap of her bag. I made mistakes," she admitted, her voice trembling slightly. "I see that now. I hurt you, and I hurt our family. I don't expect forgiveness, but I wanted to say I'm sorry. Truly." David studied her for a long moment, his heart and mind at odds. There was a time when he would have given anything to hear those words from her, but now they felt hollow. Her apology couldn't erase the years of deception or the pain she had caused. "There's nothing left to say, Sarah," he said finally, his voice steady. "You made your choices, and now I'm making mine." She looked at him, her eyes searching his face for any sign of softness, but there was none. I want to make things right," she said quietly. "You can't undo what's been done," David replied. "The only thing you can do now is move forward, and that's what I'm doing. I'm focusing on the kids and their future. That's all that matters to me now." Sarah nodded slowly, a tear slipping down her cheek. "I understand," she whispered. "I really am sorry, David, for everything." Without another word, she turned and walked away, the weight of her actions hanging heavily on her shoulders. David closed the door and leaned against it, exhaling deeply. He didn't feel anger or satisfaction, just a quiet sense of closure. That night, after the kids were asleep, David sat at the kitchen table with a cup of tea, reflecting on Sarah's visit. Her apology had stirred memories of their early days, the good times before everything had gone wrong. But those memories were just that, memories. They belonged to a chapter of his life that had ended. For the first time, David felt truly free. Free from the weight of her betrayal. Free from the endless cycle of doubt and regret. He no longer needed her validation or her excuses. His focus was on the future, on building a stable, loving home for his children, on finding joy in the little moments, on creating a life that was honest and true. He pulled out his notebook, the one where he had been sketching out plans and goals for the future. Flipping to a blank page, he wrote at the top, "Next steps. 1. Enroll the kids in extracurricular activities. Point 2. Start saving for a family vacation. Point 3. Look into counseling for Emma. Point 4. Volunteer at the community center. Point 5. Keep moving forward." David stared at the list for a moment before setting the pen down. The road ahead was still uncertain, but he felt ready to face it. For the first time in a long time, he allowed himself to believe that better days were coming. The next morning, as the sun streamed through the windows, David and the kids sat down for breakfast together. Emma was excitedly talking about an art project she was working on, while Ben and Sophie argued over who got the last pancake. David laughed, feeling a warmth in his chest that had been absent for far too long. This was what mattered, not the mistakes of the past, not the pain of betrayal, but the love and joy of the present. As he looked at his children, David realized that they weren't just his reason for enduring. They were his reason for thriving. And with them by his side, he knew he could handle anything that came his way. The pieces of his life were coming back together, stronger and more resilient than before. And for the first time in years, David felt a quiet, unshakable hope for the future. If this intense episode left you craving answers, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss an episode of The Veil of Deceit. In the next episode, the final courtroom showdown reveals a truth that will leave everyone speechless. As Sarah's empire crumbles, David faces a life-changing decision that could redefine his family's future. Don't miss the emotional and climactic episode 10, A New Beginning.